As always, no matter what poll numbers I give you, you need to vote in November. Whether the Republican is up 20 or down 20 or a neo-Nazi child molester, you need to assume that it's a close race and that your vote is a necessity. With those disclaimers out there, I want to talk about Wisconsin's gubernatorial race, where the Republican incumbent governor, Scott Walker, could go down, okay? Democratic challenger Tony Evers is running against Scott Walker. Walker's been governor since 2011. He is 5 points behind the Democratic challenger in a new PPP poll. Now, of course, normal caveats. Number one, PPP is a left-leaning pollster. Number two, they have it 49 to 44, which still leaves 7% undecided or possible third party, both of which can end up breaking towards the incumbent as we close in on election day. But right now, this is the only post-primary poll that we have out of Wisconsin. And putting aside for a second the slight leftward lean of PPP polls in general, even if the poll is off by 5 points plus the margin of error, right? So instead of being +5, Tony Evers is down 3. That's still huge, and that still means that Scott Walker could go down in Wisconsin if people actually get out and vote. We've got 11 weeks left. It's insane that we're only 11. Seems like just yesterday Donald Trump was elected president, and we're only 11 weeks from the 2018 midterms. And defeating Scott Walker would be just a huge win, not only for progressives, but also for workers in Wisconsin, because Walker has been this massively anti-worker and sort of a darling of the right to work crowd. And it could completely change the tone of Wisconsin for 2020 for the presidential election. And you might remember, I certainly haven't forgotten, that back during the 2016 presidential election, Donald Trump ended up winning Wisconsin by about 27,000 votes. Hillary Clinton's presence in Wisconsin was what we're calling limited, or maybe extremely limited, we might say.
Or non-existent.
Or almost completely non-existent. So having this change in direction in Wisconsin could be huge for what ultimately happens in the presidential in 2020. But I want to go back to the most important part of this. Even if the Democrat was really up 5 right now, that means more Democrats need to vote, because if Republicans think for a second that they're down 5, they will try to suppress 6 percentage points worth of Democratic votes. They are doing it. Russia's interfering. We've been told that many times by our intelligence agencies. In Georgia, as we talked about earlier in the program today, they are trying to close 7 of 9 polling places in a predominantly black and Democratic-leaning area. And every single person must vote. You can volunteer for Tony Evers, information at tonyevers.com. And on a side note, I read a bunch of articles this morning preparing for this story. Always say the Democratic candidate and the Democratic Party. This is a thing that's been around for decades, actually, but in the last 5 to 10 years, it's really grown. And I don't often explain it. Democrat Party and the Democrat candidate, it's an epithet that was developed by the right decades ago. And there's a whole grammatical argument around it, which is, well, when we talk about the Democratic Party, that implies small d Democratic, like it is a party of democracy, rather than a party called capital D Democratic. So the right will often say it's grammatically correct to say the Democrat Party. It is a way that the right has figured out to avoid associating democracy with the Democratic Party. Don't say the Democrat Party. Don't say the Democrat candidate. I'm not language policing. I'm giving you strategic political advice. This is something that has been of debatable effectiveness, but don't play into it. And I've even found some people on the left who start saying the Democrat challenger. Don't say it. A ton of the articles written by right-wing media about this Scott Walker poll talk about the Democrat candidate, Tony Evers. It's the Democratic candidate.
Yeah, I hate this. It leaves such a bad taste in my mouth, and it's just poor grammar at the end of the day. And the reason
they argue
do it,
it's
too,
the right grammar.
I don't think so. And they also use it because it ends in the word rat. So that makes people, associate negative things with the Democrat Party.
Sure, and there's even memes about rats. It's stupid. Just don't use it. And most importantly, whether you live in Wisconsin, whether you live in Pennsylvania, whether you live in Massachusetts, I don't care where you live. Although I'd love to hear about what it's like living there. I don't mean I literally don't care. I mean, regardless of where you live, or irregardless of where you live, both of which mean the same thing, you got to vote. That's really the point here. You absolutely have to vote.